There it goes, the first train not only of the new year, but of the new decade for me. A Norfolk Southern Intermodal train either bound for Rickenbacker Yard or Norfolk, Virginia. The date is January 25th, 2020, and my brother and I were going to the train stores in Worthington, Ohio to go and shop, and on our way up there, we decided to stop at Cook Road to see if there was a train coming by, which as you can see, was. After this train got on by, we then went up to the train stores and didn't see any other trains that day. Then about a week later, on February 2nd, we then saw another Norfolk Southern southbound intermodal train, this time at Shock Road. On this day, my brother and I, and some of our friends, were going up to the Central Ohio Model Railroad Club to run our trains and to have fun. Before going to the club, I wanted to drive by Shock Road to see if any trains were there, and as you can see, there was one. Later on in the day, I heard rumors that CP 7015, one of Canadian Pacific's original heritage units, was leading a train bound for Springfield, Ohio, with a routing via Bellevue and Columbus. Certainly an odd routing, but I wasn't complaining. The next day, on February 3rd, after getting some of my chores done at the house, I headed up the Cook Road back in Worthington. Just before leaving the house, I learned via heritageunits.com that CP 7015 was spotted up in Bucyrus, Ohio, so that's why I came up here. Just as I got there, I then learned from some rail fans that the train with CP 7015 was just north of the crossing, so I got set up to catch the train there. On September 16, 2019, at Progress Rail's locomotive shops in Mayfield, Kentucky, they rolled out CP 7015 and 7010. Two rebuilt EMD SD70 ACUs, painted in Canadian Pacific's Old Tuscan red, gray, and gold paint scheme. As stated, in an article from Trains magazine, the plan for Canadian Pacific is to paint 8 more of these SD70 ACUs into this scheme. 4 of them, 7016 to 7019, will be painted like 7015, and 7011 to 7014 will be painted like 7010. If you look up pictures of 7010, although they look quite similar, 7010 has a thicker gray line and has the classic, cursive Canadian Pacific logo instead of the Times New Roman style on 7015. As a side note, CP 7010 and 7015, along with the soon-to-be other locomotives, weren't the first ones to be given this heritage paint scheme. CP 3084, a GP 38-2, was given 7010 style paint scheme in the early 2000s. As of 2019, 3084 is still on the roster of Canadian Pacific, so perhaps in the near future, a good photo opportunity with 3084 and the soon-to-be 7010 through 7019 might come up for some lucky rail fan. After seeing the train here, I then drove to the Highland Avenue Railroad crossing at Valley View, west of Columbus, Ohio. When I got there, I heard this. That was the Camp Chase Railroad's interchange train crossing Eureka Avenue crossing just south of me. They were heading for the connecting track to get on to NS's Dayton District to go to Buckeye Yard, but before they could do that, dispatch decided to have CP 7015's grain train come on by first. Besides 7015, there are also some fallen flag grain cars on this train, such as a bunch of former Chicago Northwestern cars and even a former Milwaukee Road car along with an Illinois Terminal car. Although it was hard to see the logo on the IT car since most of it was faded off. The Milwaukee Road and Illinois Terminal cars were near the end of this train today. As the train rolled on by, I then caught a piece of information on my scanner and recorded it on my camera. What you are about to hear was a conversation between Norfolk Southern's dispatch, the CP train, and the Camp Chase train. If I would have re-listened to the audio I caught on this recording, I would have figured out what was going on.
Got a question for you there. When we bring you out, are you able to go past CP 139 and then use that crossover to come back up on Main 2? Over. Done, Steve.
Yes, we are able to go down to 139, come back up the main tube.
Okay, alright, if that's the case, then we'll do that. Give me just 1 second here and I'll give you permission to come out.
Okay, thank you. Come on out.
60p over.
60p.
Alright, I guess we need to take it down to Rome Hillard there. We can tie it down there, that way I can bring this camp chase out behind you, over.
Okay. We got the far left.
What is your lead engine there, 60p?
7015.
CP7015, correct, over?
That is correct.
Thank you. GAMY01, over.
GAMY01 answered, over.
GAMY01, you have permission to open up occupy main 10 between CP144 and CP139 behind the CP7015 west, over.
I wanted permission to open up main 1, 144 and 139 behind CP7015.
That's correct, and he should be coming by here in just a moment.
Alright, he is cleared up. We're ready to pick our timer and get ready to come out.
Alright, sounds good. And like I said, we'll go east towards 139, and then I'll cross you back over to 2. Are you going Miami inbound, over?
Yes, ma'am, Miami inbound.
Alright, thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim Owen out. Let me know when you're back in the can. See if we can do the 3-step drop, and I'll cut out and come up there with you. Copy.
When I first listened to the scanner while I was recording this, I got the impression that it was going to be the Canadian Pacific train that would back up, resulting in me only seeing this much of the Camp Chase train. It took a second listening to figure out what was going on, but by the time I figured it out, I was already back home reviewing the footage. Anyway, as the Camp Chase train continued east, I left to find CP7015's train sitting on the main line waiting for a new crew. It had gotten off the Sandusky district and was now on the Dayton district, and the new crew to drive this train across that district was coming up all the way from Cincinnati, Ohio. Yet another oddity to add to the list, but so it was. The train was just east of the Hilliard-Rome Road crossing in Lincoln Village, and the best place to see it was at Park. No avenue, road, or even street, just Park. And this road ran right alongside the main line from Smith Road to Buena Vista Avenue. As I said before, 7015 is a rebuilt EMD SD70 ACU. It was originally built for the Canadian Pacific in 1998 as an EMD SD9043 Mac. It worked on the railroad until it was put in storage. In 2015, Norfolk Southern, another buyer of the SD9043 Mac, decided to rebuild their engines at their Altoona shops as SD70 ACUs. As of 2020, all the NS SD90s have been rebuilt, and since the program was so successful, in 2018, Canadian Pacific announced that they would be rebuilding some of their SD90s into SD70s, this time being rebuilt by Progress Rail in Kentucky. It was pretty interesting to see the contrast between the old paint scheme and the modern paint scheme, even though 8573's paint scheme had been worn out for a little while now. After a little bit of time, I decided to break off and go get some lunch, and by the time I got back, a small crowd of rail fans had gathered near the tracks to see the locomotive. The last time I was here was back on March 20th, 2017. On that day, I saw two things that will never be seen again: the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus red train, and the old Pennsylvania Railroad-styled signal bridge. If you wish to see my coverage of the Ringling Brothers Circus train, I'll leave a link down in the description box below so you can go check that out. After 2017, the old Pennsylvania Railroad signal bridge was taken down and replaced with the modern signals which we see today. All that is left of the old signal bridge is an old Conrail-style number board and 2 concrete bases to mark where the old bridge once stood. After about 2 hours of waiting, the new crew finally arrived around 2 o'clock. After about another half an hour, the train was finally ready to go. As the train continued to roll on westward, I then broke off to get ahead of the train. We are now at the Glade Run Railroad crossing, halfway between West Jefferson and London, Ohio, at milepost 158 on the railroad. This is one of a handful of places left on this district to have US&S tricolor light signals still in place protecting the line. Although it probably won't be long before these signals are taken down and replaced with modern ones. So if you guys want to see these signals in action with trains passing by, I suggest getting them now. As another side note, this train, once it reaches its destination in Springfield, will never run again on this line, as CP has now rerouted the train to go over the Chicago-Fort Wayne and Eastern to Lima, Ohio from Chicago. And once it reaches Lima, it'll then go down the I&O's DT&I line to get to Springfield. And since it was the end for this train, they certainly picked a good way of going out with it. And with that, we have reached the end of yet another video. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have a good day. See you later.